Hi, I'm Brittany Rizzo, and welcome back to My Only Friends. On today's episode, I chat with Danielle Bisutti. Danielle has been seen on some of television's most popular series, including Parks and Recreation, Last Man Standing, The OC, Private Practice, and 2.5 Men, to name a few. She is best known for her starring role as Amanda Cantwell opposite Keke Palmer on the Nickelodeon series True Jackson VP. Her talents lend to both on-screen and behind-the-scenes work. In 2018, Danielle provided the voice and motion capture for the Witch of the Woods, who is later to be revealed as the Goddess Freya in the Sony Playstation video game God of War. Currently, Danielle is starring in the film The Blue Rose, a film about two rookie detectives who set out to solve a homicide, but end up in an alternate reality made up of their worst nightmares. This episode reminds me of the Friends episode, the one where Rachel goes back to work. Joey brings Phoebe to the set of Days of Our Lives to do some background work, where Phoebe then takes the job a little too serious. Danielle shared with me how she actually got her SAG voucher from working as an extra on Friends and used that time to study Jennifer Aniston's technique. We talk a lot about the characters we channel in our hard times, how she writes a song for the characters she plays, and the connection television gives us with others. Please enjoy my conversation with Danielle Bisutti. Where was your premiere? Where was it at?
We were at the Lemley Theater in Glendale. Are you LA based?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. So I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's right by the Grand, you know, the big mall there.
Yes.
And cute little red carpet right out front, and the Blue Rose that we had a completely sold out house. In fact, we had people standing in the aisleway, which was a total fire hazard, but
I was gonna say besides the fire hazard, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm so happy for George. I mean, he's 19 and he has his first movie with distribution.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, you should check it out. It's called The Blue Rose. We can talk about it obviously in the interview.
Yeah, I mean it came out today, right? So
Yeah,
it's
today.
like the perfect time to talk about it.
Yeah,
Right off the bat, I'm like, do people tell you kind of look like Courtney Cox?
all the time, and I love it. And you know what's so crazy? What's crazy is I have wanted to like play her sister or something, and I got really close to the idea of that in Shining Vale
Mm-hmm.
because a good friend of mine is one of the writers on that, Jill Bloch-Vodel, and it just didn't happen. I don't know if it's a conflict of interest that I look like her or if it's a good thing. I don't know, but I would love
Yeah.
to work with her. Obviously, grew up with Friends, graduated
Yeah.
high school in 1994, so you're talking to the right girl.
Oh my gosh. Well, in case you haven't realized by the title of the show, I'm absolutely obsessed with Friends. So like it's always so funny because I can relate absolutely anything to a Friends episode or like I'll just it's like I'll find any reason to bring up Friends or Taylor Swift.
Yeah, yeah. I love some T Swift too.
Oh my gosh. Like literally before you got on, I was humming one of her songs in my head. Like I'm just like sitting here. It's her new album is just constantly in my head. I can't. And I'll try to listen to other music and I'm like, no, it's just not the same.
It's not the same. Yeah, no, she's very special. She's definitely one of a kind. You can't at that age to have that much talent and poetry and
Hmm.
possession of self and connection with fans. And she's, yeah, the magnetism is it. That's just a gift. All of it, her whole package.
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
she's gorgeous.
Yeah.
You know, how do
Yeah.
you do it? She's a unicorn.
You know, it's so funny. Speaking of unicorn, I was watching interviews of you and I think it was at like kind of like a Comic-Con type of event and you were I don't know if you were using a British accent.
Oh,
If
probably. I
and
do
I
it all
was like
the
I was like, wow, she is so good at her American accent right now.
time.
And then I was like, wait, it says
Wait,
she was born and raised in LA, but this British accent is like so good. And she's in an interview. So I'm sitting here like, okay, where is she from?
where's she from? That's wild. Yeah, that's the accent. That's kind of my go-to. I always sort of fancied myself being British, but born in the wrong continent.
Mm,
I love it. I love Scotland. I love the UK. I love London, England. So
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you were born and raised in LA. I
Yeah,
could imagine that you've seen it change so much. Would you say for the worse or for the better?
definitely for the worse.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, it's like I like to be a lady. I like to be graceful. I was born and raised here. It's just tough. It's just it's a great state.
Mhm.
There's Hollywood. I
Right.
mean, this is the origin story of all of our, television and film entertainment. It was the hub at one point. I mean, things still do film here,
Mhm.
but it has just become, sorry to say, I'm not sorry to say, actually, a very expensive place to live, a difficult place if you're a single person, even challenging if you are in a couple and the two of you are trying to make ends meet here. I mean, I remember one time I was driving around in Beverly Hills and it was $7.12 to fill up like for 1 gallon of gas. I mean, that was in Beverly Hills, right? So there, it's going to be a higher premium, but I just remembered looking at that point and price of groceries and price of real estate and everything and our long withstanding drought. Now, that's not necessarily leadership's fault, like that's nature, right? But
Mhm.
leadership, especially after COVID and the way things were handled with a lot of the homelessness,
Mhm.
a very, very sad situation. Just feels like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. Feels like so many missed opportunities to really repair and restore this great state and this great legacy of a city. So
Right.
I'm sorry to say it, not because I'm being honest and calling out what I see and what I've seen as a born and raised Angelino. I'm
Mhm.
sorry to say it because I'm sad it happened,
Right.
you
Right.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard because it's like I feel like I still have my rose-colored glasses on when it comes to LA because I'm from Las Vegas. And so this was like where we would vacation, like Orange County or, anywhere in California. And it was always just like I was so starry-eyed. And I still get really starry-eyed when I go out and about here. And I'm like, this is just like so cool. And I have this like obsession almost with nostalgia of what the industry was like in like the 90s and the 2000s.
Ew.
And
The 80s.
yeah, and I'm sure that like I mean you worked a lot in the early 2000s and on all of these incredible shows. And I could imagine seeing how much the industry has changed and kind of lost its sparkle a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. My first recurring role on the OC, which is probably a show that you would like gravitate toward. I feel like a friend's lover would also love the
I
OC.
did watch the OC and I think because I just love Rachel Bilson so much. Like I just think she's the cutest ever.
She's a little button. She's a little doll.
Yeah.
All of them were great to work with.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, it was a different time. It just felt, I don't know, and it's so funny because yeah, you have the rose-colored glasses and you look back and it felt a lot less complicated in the world.
Mhm.
Politically, it felt less complicated, and I don't just mean politically for, as far as like government, but like just political, like even the politics within the industry. It just
Mhm.
for me, it was a different time. Um, and now yeah, I think, it's so hard. Everything has an effect on everything. Like the economy also has an effect on like how many shows can get greenlit. And
Mhm.
that's not just affecting, the indie space, which is a very important space, right? Because in our independent filmmaking space, or even just people that are making independent TV pilots, it's really important because those are some of the independent voices out there that are going to bring some new ideas to the table. But it even affects like the big fish on, the big studios, right? And we had COVID, which was devastating because it shut everything down. And then there were all these, mandates that happened. And there were some people that couldn't get the vax because of certain health issues, and then they couldn't
Mhm.
work. And so it was a difficult time to navigate for everybody. And
Yeah.
then like 6 months later, the WGA went on strike, which I
Right.
understand why. There's a real threat with AI. Trust that that is really happening.
Right.
And then SAG-AFTRA, and now then we had a little reprieve, and now it's possible that our crews, the IATSE and Teamsters, may strike. And so it's really hard, right? So we can call it greed, and that's yeah, it's easy to point the finger, and I can definitely see that. And I don't know all the inner workings. I'm not part of any like inner workings of the union. I
Mhm.
certainly know we need to be protected against AI because that's a game changer right there. Like to take my voice, to take my image, and to not have any proprietary,
Mm-hmm.
ownership of that is just absolutely insane. But, then the economy affects, everything.
Right.
So
Right.
it's been I don't wanna say it's completely bleak because I just was at a premiere of an indie film that got distribution, so there's still hope and
Yeah.
everything happening.
Yeah. So let's go back to the beginning. Were your parents in the industry? Like so you're, I feel like if you're born and raised here, it's like 1 out of 5 people in every family is going to grow up to be an actor. Like,
That is true.
but
Yeah, my
how did
dad
you get into it?
well, my dad was a child actor.
Okay.
He like, for example, a musical Damn Yankees,
Mm-hmm.
he was right next to, like, I think it was Gwen Verdon in that film. He would always be right by Frank Sinatra or Gene Kelly. They'd always pick him. He was always the kid with the smile that they would pick, and so my family on both sides, my father and mother's side, had people in the industry. My aunt's Christina Ferrari. She was a very prominent model in the 70s and 80s and a television show host and an actress. And so both sides had experience, like were basically steeped within the industry, whether it was music. My great aunt Helen was a singer to TV personality to film, filmmaker to actor to writer and directors. So it felt in my blood. It certainly felt in my DNA. It was certainly all around me. And of course, it just felt natural.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so you'll love this though. I did want to be a child actor, and my dad was like, please stay in school. He's like, do all the plays you want, do all the music you want, but stay in school. So I did. I did all the plays, and I got a lot of great experience and the choir. And then it came time to graduate and either try to go into the industry or go to college. And of course, my dad was, my mom maybe a little less so, but my dad really was encouraging college. So I decided to go that route and actually get an education. But what was really cool was my senior year in 1994 to my first 2 years in college. One of my cousins, because I have 200 Italian cousins on my dad's side, was the
Wait,
camera,
legit 200?
but probably and more at this point. Like there's so many.
Yeah.
My great grandparents had 11 kids.
Wow.
So there's just a lot of Italians running around.
Yeah.
And he was a cameraman on Friends.
Oh my God, I'm so jealous. Did you go to tapings?
You're gonna be very jealous because I did background work and I would sit in Central Perk and I was like one of the customers in there for several like different episodes. And what it afforded me was not only my SAG vouchers so I could join the union, but I got to watch Jennifer Aniston. I would study her like
I have goosebumps all over my body because this is incredible. This is like, I would have never expected this. And I am so excited. Like, that is, oh, I'm so
yeah.
jealous.
It was a really cool era of like TV. And I mean, you had Seinfeld, you had Friends, like it was epic.
I need to
And
like unhinge my jaw and put it back up. I am like, oh my God. Like, I dream of that. That sounds, just sit in Central Park and like be a part of that. That's incredible. And I love that you said like you just watched and studied,
studied them.
because I swear that's all. Like, I just went to a taping of a pilot and I was in the audience and I had a lot of friends who are working on the pilot. And I was like, the audience, can you guys just shut up for a second? I'm trying to study. Like, I'm taking it as like a class. Like, I'm watching every single thing these actors are doing because I'm like, there's no better way to learn than by watching people who are at like the peak of their game. And so I could just imagine, like, have you seen the episode of Friends where Phoebe is an extra?
Oh no, I don't know what I'm trying to see if I can remember. Wait, no, I think I remember that one. The one where she's an extra. Wait, tell me one of the bits.
Where she's like, she has to bring over like the tray. She's on Days of
Right.
Our Lives with
Yes.
Joey. And she's always like, well, my character wouldn't do this. And
Do this. Yes.
and I could imagine like if I was an extra on Friends, I would be like, well, wait, how do I get incorporated into this story?
Totally. I mean, it was so tempting, when you have like Jennifer Aniston walking past you or Matthew Perry, or David
Mm.
Schwimmer, and you just feel part of the magic, you feel part of their magic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I in particular, I mean, of course, Lisa Kudrow, all of them so talented. In particular, I was really watching Jennifer Aniston. Like she was so meticulous with her blocking, and I
Mm.
remembered her sort of going through the scene, so it was in her body, and that really stuck with
Mm.
me. And when my first comedy that I was on as a regular True Jackson VP, I was always very studious with, learning obviously the lines, and I was a very copious little note taker, with my characters point of view and what their objective was, and of course all of Amanda Cantwell's backstory. But I do remember very much wanting to keep walking through the blocking, so it was in my body, so it felt
Mhm.
very natural when it came time for the camera to be on. Also, I had a bit of physical comedy with Amanda Cantwell, and one of my heroes, obviously Lucille Ball, like one of
Mm.
the great comedians with her physical comedy, and Madeline Kahn, also another one of my absolute heroes in the Mel Brooks universe. And
Mhm.
yeah, so that I thought you would love that little piece
Oh,
of
I
trivia.
love that so much. I'm like, we don't have to talk about anything else." Like, that is truly just, like, so incredible. I love stories like that, and, like, how cool is that, like, you got your SAG voucher from Friends? Like,
It
that
was
is insane.
it was Friends, Sybil, which was a show with Sybil Shepherd and Christine Baranski that you may or may not remember,
I
because
feel
I
like
think
it sounds familiar to
yeah.
me.
It was a really good show. Christine Baranski really I mean, she's always been a consummate theater actress, but I mean, she's just so stellar.
Mhm.
Step by Step was a show.
Oh, I love Step by
You
Step.
remember Step by Step? Yeah,
That
Stacey,
theme song is, like, the best theme song
so good.
besides Friends. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Friends is the most iconic, but I miss a good theme song. Like
Me
I love some of the theme songs today. Like they're fun, they're more instrumental. Like one
Mhm.
really notable one that was Succession, of course. I don't know if you watched the show Succession.
I didn't, but I have a friend, Molly, who, like, that was her ringtone.
Yeah,
Like,
it's so good.
people love that theme song.
And Game of Thrones also, like, epic, right?
Mhm.
And I feel like those 2 theme songs got sort of mimicked with other shows, because 'cause I'd watch, like,
Mhm.
other shows and be like, "They ripped that off from G Game of Thrones, they ripped that off from
Mhm.
Succession," which is, like, a compliment, but also,
Yeah.
and back, with the great sitcoms, you had the song. It wasn't
Yes.
music, it was a song that you could
Yeah.
sing.
Yeah, and, like, then they had, like, the coolest music videos that went with them, and, like, yeah, I definitely miss the days of, like, a pop song for a theme like, a TV show. They just don't do it anymore, and, like, Growing Pains is that song,
Oh,
that
yeah.
theme song, so good, and
The Growing
I
Pains. Wait, does that one go, "Show me that smile
yeah.
again"?
Ooh, show me that smile.
Don't waste another minute of you crying. Yeah, I
So
know.
good, it's so good.
Mhm.
So, growing up, were sitcoms was that like, "I wanna do a sitcom, this is what I wanna do?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure, for sure. And then, you know, by the time the True Jackson VP was absolutely for camera,
Mhm.
sitcom, live audience. And I was very comfortable in that space. It's like part theater because you've got the audience. And then I
Right.
grew up doing extra work on all these great sitcoms. So either I was on behind in the audience watching, or I was actually on set as an extra. Um, getting a lot of experience. So by the time I was in that environment, it felt very comfortable to me.
Mm.
Um, it's a different beast than a single camera comedy. So I got to be recurring on Parks and Rec, which is also a show that has a very loyal fan base.
Mhm.
I've got a Parks and Rec podcast as well, and
Mhm.
where they feel like you're friends, right? Like they are
Mhm.
like people in your life. I'm sure there's one for The Office as well.
Right.
But I got to play Professor Linda on that. And the single camera comedy, I think I probably prefer to the sitcom as an actress, because there's something about the format of this sitcom where, and I don't know if this is true for everybody's experience. I have heard it is that some people did relate with this. You're at the table read on a Monday. Let's just say it's a 5-day week, right? Monday to
Mhm.
Friday. You're at the table read on Monday and you're reading the script. And these jokes are fantastic. I mean, on True Jackson VP, we had some of the best like comedy writers, just happened to be on a teen show on Nickelodeon, but these jokes were hilarious. So you
Mhm.
got something for the parents watching and something for the kids. and everyone's laughing and it's fresh, right? Because what makes a joke funny is it's fresh and it's the first time you've heard it because you
Right.
don't know what's coming. It's
Yeah,
like,
the
no,
element of surprise.
correct. Just like
Yeah.
horror movie. It's the element of surprise. That's what makes you jump. That's what makes you laugh. So Tuesday, everyone goes home and the writers have their notes and there may be maybe a few changes, but maybe slight. Tuesday, you're up and you're out on the set and you start blocking and you're kind of feeling out the scene. You're with the director, you're trying to figure out, how the scene lives. And then you have a run through again for the writers. Now, remember, they've already heard the joke, they've written the joke.
Mhm.
And then you're doing again now with some blocking. Now the joke will most likely, if you're good at your craft, you're going to get a laugh again. But there might be some that fall a little flat. Now, the question is it the joke that didn't work, or is it the blocking that didn't work, or is it the fact that they've already heard the joke? You don't know. You
Mhm.
don't know. Then all of a sudden Wednesday comes and there can be a major rewrite on some things, on something on Monday that was hilarious. And now you're starting to second guess yourself as an actor. You're like, what
Mhm.
did I not do? So now you got something new, and maybe the blocking changes, the joke's different, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Now you got the writers all second guessing themselves because on Wednesdays when the network comes to watch it, so then you got the network watching it, and they're gonna have their notes, and then the writers have their notes, and you're just like, I just don't want to get fired the whole time. You're like, please don't fire me. I'm like, please, I want to make your jokes work. It's all I want to do.
Yeah.
I want is for you to be happy, for me to have fun. I want to have fun. And then Thursday, you block and shoot some scenes outside of the audience. And then guess what? Friday, guess who comes in? Studio audience.
Oh, yeah.
Your studio audience comes in, and guess what? They haven't heard a joke. So
Mhm.
everything to them is good, is funny,
Right.
And so I used to always get a little bit, it was nerve-wracking at times, but I would always be so sad for the jokes from Monday that got
Mm.
make it to Friday because I'm like, I swear they're gonna love it.
Yeah.
So I'm just giving you a distinction between the multicam and then the single cam, which is you don't have an audience, studio audience, and the jokes stay a little bit fresh because what happens is you basically block and shoot. So you're not worn out on the joke for a full week. You
Right.
have it for a set period of time on a day where you're shooting that scene. And also the one thing that I really love about now you could get away with this on sitcoms, which is a bit of improv, and I'm sure they did it at times on Friends, but
Mhm.
you really improv in the space of single camera comedy. And
Mhm.
when I was on Parks and Rec, I was with Nick Offerman and, Chris Pratt and Audrey Plaza and
Right.
just like, incredible actors, and Rob Lowe and they were very open to me as a guest cast improvising with them, which was a huge, huge compliment because these guys are masters, masters
Right.
of their comedic craft. And so I know something about that space felt a little less pressure, a little more fun, a little more subdued. The multicam is a little bit of a punch setup, a punchline, and a setup for the
Mhm.
punchline, and sometimes there's a more darker obscurity with these characters in the single camera, like,
Right.
the Dwight Schrutes and the Ron Swansons of the world, it's a
Mhm.
little more of a subverted humor
Yeah.
that I tend to like a little bit better. But I
Yeah.
listen, a sitcom wants me tomorrow, I will take the job. I will
Yeah.
take the job.
Yeah. And I mean, it's true. It's true. There's so much goes into, I mean, again, I watched, there's this YouTube video on the making of a Friends episode. And it literally, it's like 45 minutes long on YouTube, and it's the one after Vegas. And it's going from like the writer's room to the Foley artist to like show night to blocking to all this. Like, so much goes into those
Much goes into
22 minutes. It's
that.
insane. But again, like just hearing all of that, like it's so interesting because we all have this idea of what it's going to be like when we're on it. And then you do see, how the sausage is made a little bit, and you're like, I think I like this one better.
Yeah, you see how the sausage is made, and
Yeah.
yeah, you kinda get the idea of which one feels more natural for you. I can do both. There's a different way to turn a joke in both, worlds. The one golden thread through all of it is just being truthful, right? When you're
Mhm.
telling the truth as an actor in an imaginary set of circumstances, that's
Mhm.
what it is. So it doesn't matter if it's, something within the context of a multicam where it's written a certain way or a single cam where it's written a certain way. You still have to be feeling it truthfully.
Right.
Then the
Right.
words come out, and then the audience is right there with you because when you're
Mhm.
feeling it. when I feel it, you feel it, and vice
Right, right. It's so funny because when I was watching like True Jackson VP and Amanda Cantwell, she's got a character like that would be so fun to play. And
versa.
I'm
So fun.
sure it was because like I always like I would love to play the really bitchy best friend or the really like petty girl or just like the most off the wall person because you have these sides in you and you just don't let them out in the real world because you know that there's repercussions of being that way to people. But then when you get to play that character and you get to let it all out knowing that you're not gonna like be held accountable for it, I'm sure is so fun.
Yeah, so you're saying you thought Amanda was a bitch?
She just got to be like a little snarky
Super
and
snarky.
yeah, and I loved it. I was like, that would be so much fun to play and wear those clothes.
The clothes were incredible. I have been dressed to, like, perfection on my 2 series that I've had. I also there's a show that I wanna turn you on to called Dwight in Shining Armor, where I play a very fashionista witch.
Mm.
Had Amanda Cantwell qualities, like, we all have certain qualities where the casting feels just, like, dead on. So, I was
Mhm.
dead on for Amanda Cantwell. Do not speak my mind as freely as she
Yeah.
does or did, especially back then. Maybe
Yeah.
at my age now, at 47, I'm probably a lot more candid with
Mm.
like, when you asked me that question about California, I probably wouldn't have been, from my experience, as truthful because 'cause I'd be like, what if Gavin Newsom's listening?" Or, "What if I offend someone?"
Yeah.
I really don't care, like, everyone has their experience. There's plenty of people happy here in California. I ended up not being happy here anymore, so I moved to Atlanta, but my whole
Oh.
family's here. My whole family's here, so I'm here now. I
Mhm.
see my mom when I come into town, and it's great.
Mhm.
But it just wasn't where I wanted to live anymore.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, so Amanda Cantwell, like she was all out for the world to see. But what was funny about it was that she thought she had this sort of sophisticated facade, but really
Mhm.
it was just every all of her emotions were always just kind of finding a little place to like spark out or ooze out here and there.
Mhm.
And it was really fun to play that vulnerability that she had on the inside.
Mhm. Mhm.
So threatened by this 15-year-old girl coming in and sharing, equal parts of an office space with her, and, it was a joy.
Yeah. Yeah. When you were growing up, what was like when you were like a kid and you're like, okay, I want to do this. Like, what character were you watching on TV and you're like, I want to do that?
I mean, honestly, it probably was a combination between Lucille Ball and Madeline Kahn in all of the Mel Brooks movies because
Mhm.
was raised in a pretty strict Christian house. So like we were very judicious about like the shows we would watch, and actually good on my parents because you should really be careful what you're letting your kids watch in general. So we
Yeah.
would watch a lot of like Nick at Night. So like all the shows from the
Same.
50s where I wasn't alive, but
Mhm.
the great classics, me and my brother got to watch a lot, and so, yeah, I Love Lucy was one on repeat, and so was, um, The Twilight Zone, as a matter of fact, which was, like that kinda got me.
Scary.
Totally. That kinda, like, turned me on to this whole, like, paranormal, like, surrealistic alternate universe world, which also really fascinates me as well, like, the
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So I had, like, the comedy over here with Lucille Ball and Mel Brooks and Madeline Kahn, and when I saw Madeline Kahn in Blazing Saddles and I saw her in Young Frankenstein, I was like, "She's, like, the preeminent goddess of all comedians, like, that's who I wanna be."
Mhm. Mhm. Gosh, I think of like I'm like there's it's no wonder I wanted to get into television because my high school experience, like we watched Twilight Zone in my English class. Like that was like it was like creative writing and I swear all my teachers, they just didn't really want to teach and they'd put on a show. And
Like, "Let's
like
watch TV."
literally in my multicultural lit class, my teacher would put on George Lopez. That was her idea of multicultural. And then
Right.
my math teacher would put on numbers and be like, write down 50 facts of the episode and you get extra credit. Like I watched, and my driver's ed teacher, if you could believe, would put on Fast and Furious. Like,
That's wrong.
and I'm like, it is no wonder why I've crashed 2 cars and I love television.
Yeah, and you can't do math, I mean, I get
I
it.
can't. I
It's
can't.
like, "I need a calculator."
Yeah, but it's true. Like the things we watch when like when you watch all of these things as you're growing up, you think that that's normal life, and it does. It gets into your head, and I'm so obsessed with television, and I grew up watching Nick at Night too, and because I would have nightmares, and my dad would wake up, and we'd go and we'd watch Welcome Back, Kotter, and I Dream a Genie, Bewitched, The Brady
Bewitched,
Bunch,
Bunch, the Monkeys, the Partridge
the
Family.
Monkeys. I loved the Monkeys
I
so
love the
much.
Monkeys too, the Donna Reed show. I mean, like, all of
Yeah.
them. And I mean, there's, and then you have all the great sitcoms in the 80s and then the ones in the
Hmm.
90s. And
Hmm.
yeah, there's it. I love a show that can bring bring family time together. Like the Cosby Show at
Yes.
that,
Hmm.
was so like we would just gather and just like hang out with the Cosbys, and we were just
Hmm.
felt part of their family. And it's just so many great shows growing up. So the one I want to turn you on to is Dwight in Shining Armor.
Okay.
I tell people, if you like The Princess Bride
Hmm.
and Monty Python, set like kind of in a freaks and geeks world, like in high school,
Oh.
um, you're gonna love this show. So it's basically this high school kid who goes out to take a picture of a very rare owl in the woods, and he falls through a hole into a sunken kingdom on top of a princess, a warrior princess who's been asleep for 1,000 years, accidentally lip locks with her and wakes her up, right? The
Hmm.
sleep beauty trope. But she doesn't wake up all dainty. She wakes up and draws her sword at his throat.
Oh
But he
my.
also wakes up her magician named Baldric, and he goes, "No, no, no, princess, you don't understand. This is the champion that we've been waiting for." And there's a plaque on the wall like, "Whosoever waketh up this princess must protect her from her hordes of enemies." So this kid's like, what the actual, what is happening right
Mhm.
now? Like, where am I? They're like, "Oh no, we've been asleep for 1,000 years." But not only does he wake up the two of them, he wakes up all of the creatures and all of the people
Mhm.
from like 10th century, like medieval times.
Mhm.
So now we're all awake and like roaming middle America. So it's medieval meets middle America. It's single camera. It's hilarious. And
What's it on?
it's on byutv.org.
Okay.
So all you have to do is go in your browser and put byutv.org, and you can literally put in the show and watch it for free. You don't have to pay like Netflix, you pay a premium.
Mhm.
Apple TV, there's no premium. And it's funded by the church and the college. It's not religious at all, but what their goal is to have family programming, the kinds of shows you can watch with your parents and
Mhm.
your kids.
Mhm.
And it's just I played such a nut job, which I mean, she had her own lotions and potions, like salon, and I'm like always to the nines. I mean, but she's a complete whack job, and but played dead serious, and that was what was so fun about the show.
That's amazing. Gosh. Yeah, the family shows, I mean, they're needed now, and it's because the thing is like, especially for me, it is the biggest question I ask. Like, I work in a salon, or when I'm like out in the world and I meet new people, I'm like, "What new shows are you watching?" And like, good television really brings people together. It really does. And like, even right now, I'm watching Alias, and I am obsessed. It's bad. It's
It's
bad.
so
I get hooked on a television show, and then I think like I'm going to Ralph's and I'm terrified. I'm like, everybody here's a secret spy trying to kill me. Like, I can't separate. And then last night there was like a fire next door in the school, and I'm watching Alias. I'm like, wow, when did I get surround sound? And then I'm like, oh my God. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, SD6 is here. Like, I can't separate reality from the television show because I get so hooked. But like, my dad watched it and my grandfather watched it. And so now I'm like texting with my grandfather about Alias, or talking to, and I love that. Like, because sometimes you don't always have something to talk about with people, but it does, it helps you make a bond with somebody that you typically wouldn't have. And so that's why
like
I
a
just
well-written show. And so like whether you're in a fantasy, historical fan fiction of Game of Thrones, or you're in Alias, with this, undercover CIA
Mhm.
and everything, or you're just at a coffee shop with your friends, if you are telling truthful stories and they're having human experiences, that's your way in, right? And you're
Mhm.
related to these characters, and you're feeling alongside these characters, and so you get to share that with your friends and family. Well, one of the couple shows that we would watch would like 24. I don't know if that might be a good one if you're liking Alias. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it, yes.
Sutherland? Oh, okay. You're gonna become like a crack addict with it. Now, this was back when we couldn't binge, so you'd have to wait a week, and that was
Oh,
torture. Torture.
I would go nuts. I would go
Yeah.
absolutely nuts.
Right, because now everything's immediate gratification, like, we could not wait for the next episode. Lost, so you're obviously watching a J.J. Abrams Alias.
Mhm.
Love the J.J. Abrams universe, you have to see Lost.
Mhm.
Eh,
I've seen somebody else who came on the show really liked it, so that's why I watched it for them, and I was like, "This is stressing me out."
yeah, it's stressful. Yeah, but I mean, they're all so pretty, aren't they?
That's the thing, I'm like, I'm
More
watching
than I
Jennifer Gardner, and I'm like, "She's just so beautiful, I'll watch this show," but, like, I typically don't watch anything violent, like, at
okay.
all. I'm such a baby, and let me tell you, I know exactly how the show ends. I Google every spoiler possible, and people are like, "Brittany, that is psychotic." And I'm like, "But now I could enjoy it." And even knowing everything that happens, I'm still sitting there going, like
Yeah,
in pure shock. So it's
okay,
like,
so, you know what you need.
yeah, I know what I need. Now,
I
is
wanted
there Oh, go ahead.
I wanted to tell you that you'll love, Dwight& Shining Armor because, um, we become these characters become sort of a hodgepodge family, and I
Mm,
love shows where, like, people otherwise their paths would never cross, and it becomes like that, and there's not like, the violence is all, like, it's a bit curbed, and then there's a fantasy element, so I think that you'll really enjoy it. We'll have to
yeah.
keep in touch if you end up watching it. I would love
Yes,
to.
absolutely. I was gonna ask you, like, okay, so you have your IMDb and like your credit list is insane. Like you have literally been on every single show, I swear. From like Last Man Standing, Private Practice, NCIS, like For the People. Like you've done so many things. And I was wondering, because like since I'm watching Alias right now, I'm like, God, I would love to do a combat. Like I would love to do something where I had to learn a fight sequence. What is one role that you're like, I haven't done this yet, but I am going to?
I think that you actually probably nailed it, like, I'd love to be like a La Femme Nikita vibes, I've done the
Yeah.
femme fatale, which is, with the nails and the whole, like,
Mhm.
outfit and sort of very mysterious and enigmatic, which is the role that I play in The Blue Rose, but I would love to I got to a bit when the video game I was in with Freya, learn how to use a bow and arrow and how to wield a sword, and they are making it into a TV series, on Amazon Prime, and that would just be an absolute dream come true to be able to maintain my character
Mm.
role and to actually realize it as my image and likeness as Danielle Bisutti on the show. So yeah, fight sequences, yeah, all of that would be really incredible, experience.
Okay, so talk about this. So how did you get into the video game world?
Just got an audition and the scene felt like a Shakespearean monologue, soliloquy. It felt like a queen who had lost her people because a choice she made that she thought was the right choice. It turned out that she got betrayed. And so there was sadness, but there was also a regal sort of stance and quality that, she had a hope that one day she'd be able to unite and connect with her people again. And I was just channeling like Khaleesi, Mother of Dragons, and
Mhm.
Lady Stark and Lady Macbeth and all these, powerful women in literature. And I ended up booking the part. I had zero experience in video games. I certainly enjoyed playing them, but not to the degree in which video games had evolved. I mean, they're so complicated. The like controller's very complicated. And
Yeah.
on the interviews I've been on, and the gamers know like my prowess like ended around Miss Pac-Man and Super Mario Brothers, like
Mhm.
the not like the alpha and beta version, but not like, like the real easy ones where like you had like 2 buttons and maybe 2 things on the side. Now there's like 20 buttons and
Yeah,
sorts of things you gotta do
and
with your phone.
headsets and
I can't. I don't know. I mean, maybe one day if someone would sit down and show me, I'd be up for it.
See, my problem would be is that somebody would teach it to me, and then you wouldn't hear from me for, like, a month because it's all I'd wanna do.
Would be so lost in that immersive world, like you
Yeah.
would you actually become the character, like I would
Yeah.
we would see you. We'd have to just make sure you were eating and sleeping.
Yeah, exactly. That's yeah, and then you were nominated for a BAFTA.
Yeah, twice for the role of Freya, and it's one of those jobs and roles that came to me just at the right time in my life. I had, like, the right life experience to
Mhm.
connect with what was written on the page, which was brilliant and beautiful. The writers at Sony Santa Monica Studios are just unparalleled in that space and just in any space, really. I mean, they just wrote the arc of these characters to absolute perfection. And so it was a real joy just to be able to show up and tell the truth of that story and allow it to touch me. And by going there with Freya, touching a lot of lives that were playing the game. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I find myself, I usually don't like to use the word luck. I use the word blessed. I felt that was a huge blessing in my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, before we talk about the Blue Rose, I want to talk about your music
Oh,
because, like, voicing a video game, amazing. Your voice is absolutely incredible.
you.
Like,
As I'm popping right now, I'm like, I have a frog.
no, I listened to Heaven last
Oh,
night.
that's one of my faves. Oh, you're so
Okay, I was sitting there and I was like, well, first of all, like every time I was clicking through a new song, all of your songs sound like they could be put in a movie or like the really pivotal moment of like a TV show, like when everything is just like falling apart or when the character's like coming back to life and she's like, I'm gonna get through this. I literally have goosebumps because I was like, oh my gosh, like this music is cinematic, but it's not, it doesn't feel like a Broadway musical. It feels just like, I don't know, like it could I don't know what I'm even trying to say. I just loved it so much. And
well,
the
so
grit to your voice, like it's so angelic and then all of a sudden there's like this emotional grit and I was like this is absolutely I loved that song Heaven.
my gosh, that is what a great reflection. Thank you so much. Well, you nailed it. Like I think because my background, being in TV and film, especially the songs I started writing probably in my late 20s to 30s, really started to gear toward a very cinematic
Mhm.
feel. And I had shared on a couple of interviews that what I like to do is when I play very complex roles, I like to write a song for that character. I like to write a song within the framework of that story. And so Heaven was from a short film that I did called The City of dot dot dot, and it was supposed to be a city of angels, but it took place here in
Mhm.
LA. And I
Do you write it from the perspective of the character?
yes.
That's such a good idea.
Yeah. And it really it's a way in. It's almost like a sonic portal into the inner life and the emotional like reservoir of that character because music does move us on such a deep like cellular level, when
Mhm.
people have a feeling of dance like the just the waves of the sound like get into the body and they affect us, right? And so and also too, that's a kind of an esoteric experience. Like just think about the soundtrack of your life, like the
Mhm.
songs were like, oh my God, that brings me back to high school. That brings me back to
Right.
being a kid. They sort of like are markers through time. And so when I play these characters, I'll always have a playlist for them.
Mhm.
And I'll always just end up writing a song. Like I wrote a song for the Blue Rose. A song of mine was used in a movie that's about to come out called Hollywood Heist. I wrote Heaven for that. I wrote a song called In the Presence of for a TV pilot I did called In the Presence of. So yeah, it tends to
Mhm.
be something that happens very naturally and they're always very cinematic.
I love that so much because music makes such a difference in television and film, and it makes you feel something completely different. Like, a song is going to change a scene completely, and it does, it evokes more emotion. So, having a specific one for your character at the time, like, that is, I don't know how I've never thought of that. That's amazing, and I'm going to use that. Like, it's
You
so good.
absolutely should. It's a great way in, and I'll talk to Amber, who's on the call with us, to send you the song that I wrote for the Blue Rose called the Blue Rose. I think that if you like Heaven, it's a little bit more of an eerie, mysterious song.
Hmm.
Um, it's a little less traditional ballad. Like Heaven is just straight
Oh,
ballad.
Heaven was so good. This song, The Fragment of a Girl Fighting to Be Free, I was like, oh my God, that like those lyrics. I was like, this is so good. Like it was just so good. I loved it.
That's one of my favorite lyrics too. Yeah, thank you
Oh,
for
that makes me happy.
that.
Who were some of your like biggest musical influences?
So growing up, you know, Carole King and Joni Mitchell were two that my mom would listen to a lot. Aretha,
Hmm.
Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday are two great, examples. Songwriter wise, Nina Simone. Songwriter wise, definitely Carole King. Like, her songs are so incredible and such great stories, and were covered by so many people.
Hmm.
And when I got into my senior year of high school into college, it was very much Tori Amos. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Tori Amos is an incredible songwriter and consummate pianist, and her songs are written almost more in a surrealistic dreamscape than real literal. Like with the Carole King song, You've Got a Friend, it's
Mm-hmm.
so relatable. It's like watching more of a linear story. And Tori Amos's was more subconscious dreamscape imagery, feeling. And some of her songs would, you could really follow an arc. Most of them actually there is an arc, but it wasn't like hand delivered to you. And so kind of between those two, I think Muse is on my left and my right. Like I just kind of found my own voice. But I wouldn't really say I'm like one genre. Like I kind of
Right.
just from whatever I'm feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely, yeah, the vibe of was it In the Presence of, that song was like completely different than Heaven. And so I definitely see that. It's so funny. I just have to say there's two words that you said in like the past 15 minutes that I only knew what they meant because I Googled them after I heard them in a Taylor Swift song.
Which one? Which word?
Soliloquy and esoteric. Because I'm like,
Esoteric.
I mean, look, it goes back to all I did was watch TV in high school. So that's my education. So I'm like, now I'm just learning from Taylor Swift. And now I'm like, oh, it came in handy because I know what she's talking about.
Yeah, good old Shakespeare. Um, yeah, so yeah, it's just it's just been a great journey of influence and experience and expression. And yeah, the music will always be a part of me. The Blue Rose song, I'm going to be shooting a music video actually with
Nice.
George, the director of the Blue Rose, and then we'll be releasing it on iTunes. So, but we'll definitely get you the link so you can hear it now if you'd
Yes,
like.
I would love that.
Yeah.
Tell me about the Blue Rose. It's out
Okay.
today.
Out today. You can purchase it on Apple TV. You can stream it on Amazon. We are in 5 select cities: Los Angeles, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Columbus, Ohio, Brooklyn, New York, and Manhattan, New York. And it's such an incredible accomplishment. I mean, George Barron was 15 when he wrote it, 16 when he directed it and starred in it. And then now at 19 years old, he has distribution through Dark Sky Films. We did a whole film festival circuit for about a year, a little over a year, where we were in London for the premiere and we went to Canada twice and all throughout the States. And it
Yeah.
was in Brazil, and it was I believe we were in Germany. Well, I didn't attend the Germany one, but
It's a little bit of life imitating art where you're on True Jackson VP and your like boss is a
yes, yes,
15-year-old.
I can't get away from them.
You're like, okay, the 16-year-old is my boss now.
Yeah, the 16-year-old. Like, I'm like, can you please put me in another one of your projects?
That
Yeah,
is so funny.
that's actually really depth of you to like see that.
Yeah.
For sure, that's what's going on. And I'll do anything George does. He's innovative. He's daring. He's going to only grow and get better. I mean, you can
Mhm.
only grow and get better. And I mean, if you're hitting it out of a park at 16 years old, 19 years old now with your first film getting distribution. I mean, it's only going to be a great exploration for him and continue to hone in his craft.
Mhm.
But yeah, it starts off kind of LA Confidential, these 2 young detectives that on a homicide case,
Mhm.
kind of ill prepared, right? And there's some good, fun comedy. I mean, it's a pastel noir because it's not black and white; it's full Technicolor, beautiful costumes. I mean, you're gonna love it. I mean,
Mhm.
just from a aesthetic standpoint, gorgeous. But then it kind of takes an interesting twist into this very David Lynchian world, kind of Twin Peaks. Like you're not quite sure, is this a nightmare? Is this a dream? Is this reality? So it
Mhm.
goes into a very esoteric space, and now you know what
Mm.
that means. Yeah,
Mhm.
you're ready. And my character is very she's sort of the socialite in Los Angeles, very a patron of the arts. She has
Mm.
eclectic, eccentric taste. She's a bit of an enigma. Everybody wants to go to her parties. There's taxidermied zebra in the beautiful long hallway, and everyone's always dressed to the nines, and you're not quite sure what she's up to, but she's
Mhm.
up to something. And I don't want to tell you too much for any spoilers because I hope
Yeah.
you'll stream it and watch it. And
Mhm. Mhm.
just know when you think you're going this way, you're going to be going this way and then this way, and then you don't know where you are. And then you think you know where you are. And then you're like, wait a minute. No, I don't have it. I have no idea where I am. And then at the very end, you might go, oh, I think I know what this is about. But I will tell you this, I didn't really get the connective tissue until I saw it a third time. You have to understand, I read the script, then I read it again, and then I
Mhm.
memorized my part. I shot it. I watched it. I watched it again, and then the third time, I was like, "Oh, I think I know what this is about."
I'm like, this sounds like art imitating my life.
You're like, "I still
No
don't
idea. I
know."
still don't know what the hell's going on here.
Well, and that's the thing about some art, right? And there's a
Mhm.
great line in the movie. My good friend Don Mancini, who created the Child's Play universe, he created Chucky. He and my dear friend Fiona Dourif, who's in that world as well. I did the Curse of Chucky with them. They came to the movie last night to the premiere, which was so great. And they it too were just completely blown away by George's talent and accomplishment, and also a bit baffled. They're like, "Is it just me, or like I'm just still trying to figure this out?" I'm like, "No, I think that's it." And he goes, "Well," and Don said, "Well, I think the whole movie hinges on the one line, some art isn't meant to be understood, just appreciated."
Mhm.
So you're going to look at this abstract painting and you're going to take something away. You're like, this is the world on fire. This is our dissension from humanity and from being a brotherhood. And someone else might watch it and go, no, 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 this is actually humanity coming together. And see, this is like the heavenly realm, and this is the hell realm, and the humans are, like whatever it is, you're going to have different
Yeah.
takeaway.
It's one of those things where, like, it sounds like for me with Black Swan, it was like I had to stop trying to understand it and just watch it. Like
Let it.
the more I tried to understand it, the less I did. So I was like, I just have to be in it and that's it. And then it invokes all these like thoughts and you're thinking of all these things and you're like, but does that make any sense? But whatever makes sense to you, like that's the point of watching art, is how it resonates with you, not because you have to have an answer, which is sounds like what this movie is, which sounds like something I would like.
I enjoy it. Yeah, I love Black Swan, one of my favorites. I so
Mhm.
upcoming for me is a psychological thriller horror. A little light on the horror, more psychological thriller drama
Mhm.
called Wake Me. And the tagline is, "What if you've been sleepwalking your whole life?" And it kind of goes in and out of a dreamscape of sleepwalking being a metaphor to the
Mhm.
things that we are unconscious to in our waking world, and the
Mm.
unconscious things that are the traumas that are stored in our subconscious from childhood. So there are these moments, traumas that happen that will get stored in the body. And unless we go through a certain healing to bring light to those places, in the darkness, a monster can be created. So I
Mm.
have this monster film that is very much personified because my lead character had something so traumatic happen in childhood that he still hasn't resolved. And so
Mhm.
as a grown man, he's got this monster, and he created
Yeah.
this graphic novel where the monster's alive. So it's one of those films where I think it's gonna have there's gonna be more of a through line that you can actually hang on to. It's gonna be a little less opaque and
Mhm.
more, like fragments. You're gonna be able to hang on to it, but at the end, the takeaway will be your personal emotional experience, like with The Black Swan, which is
Mhm.
one of my influences for Wake Me. You sometimes you just have to sit back and allow the story to move you rather
Mhm.
than trying to control it.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a character that you played that kind of helped you heal past trauma?
Freya,
Mm.
for sure.
Really? Interesting.
She hearkened and reflected like a prism, a mirror into basically kind of like my life path from when I booked it in 2014 to when I completed Ragnarok. I mean, truly, it was astonishing,
Mm.
remarkable how my life was intertwined with her journey. In obviously in like, she's a goddess, right? And of
Mhm.
course, I like to think of myself as a goddess, but
You are.
I'm human. But what was great is they wrote her with very human qualities. They wrote these
Mhm.
gods and goddesses with very, human experiences, which is why the fans just lost their minds over these characters. their hearts were being ripped open. I mean,
Mhm.
they're so attached, and I get it. I'm very attached to her as well because I
Mm.
went through everything she went through, and it was not just going through her journey. It felt like reliving and expressing
Mm.
my life as it
Mhm.
was unfolding.
Is there like, for me, I talk with my therapist a lot about channeling a character in like a hard time, or to like even in the smallest moments, like if I'm at work, I pretend I'm Rachel Green in Central Perk. I just have to.
I love
And in my day-to-day life, I'm like, what would Lorelai Gilmore do? And then
it.
yesterday I had to get blood drawn and I hate getting my blood drawn.
Me
And I was
too.
like, oh my God, give me all the tattoos in the world.
Yeah,
Blood drawing?
it's the
No,
worst. I
I
can't
hate
look
it.
at it. I
Yeah,
can't look.
can't look at it. I'm like, I don't have control of what's it's like just inside me and it's not coming. I don't like it. But I was like, okay, Agent Sydney Bristow, like she gets like she gets tortured, she gets evaluated, she's getting tests done all the time and like she gets through it. So I'm just pretending I'm Agent Sydney Bristow right now. Like I have to in order to get through certain things. Is there a character that you find you're like, what would
What
she
would
do?
Khaleesi do? What would Khaleesi, mother of
Khaleesi. Yeah.
Daenerys Targaryen, truly, I think that's probably I do often think what would Khaleesi do? Wonder Woman, probably Diana Prince, like Diana of the Mascara. That's also another great one. Yeah, I feel like that's so cute. Rachel from Friends. Yeah, I mean, I guess that could be one that I had thought of in the past. Oh, you know what I used to always pretend? Used to pretend that I was now I'm gonna forget the name of her. He called her Freckles on Lost when I would watch the TV series Lost. Um, why is her name escaping me on there? Kate from Lost.
Okay.
Yeah,
She's one
played
of the
by Evangeline Lilly.
yes, her.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she has the
yeah, yeah.
brown locks and the blue eyes. I'm like, well,
Yeah,
clearly
I'm like, we
I'm
see
her.
ourselves in people. Yeah.
I'm on the island. And I've got Sawyer. I'm like, which one do I choose, Jack or Sawyer? I don't know. I love them both.
I love that so much. I'm so
I
glad
get
I'm not alone.
You're not. I get very obsessed with shows, like, my mom and I, some of our shows are Outlander. We're absolutely like
Mhm.
Jamie and Claire, the greatest love story. Have you gotten an Outlander?
Is that with Sam Haugen? Is that his name?
Yes.
Yes.
You must. It's the greatest love story, like, in a television format of all time. Have
Yeah,
you
that's what I need. I'm like, I guess I can watch Alias because there's still a love story going on. Or like if I'm watching Buffy, every time Angel's not on, I'm like, where's Angel? Like I need it to be balanced out with like the really cheesy love story in between. I can't just watch all violence.
Oh, no, yeah, no. There is violence on there, just because it's historical fiction, but it's so worth it. Their
Yeah,
love, you're not gonna believe it. Game of Thrones, we would watch, Walking Dead, we really got into. Now that one I do not recommend if you don't like
too
violence.
scary. Yeah, too scary.
It's like gross. Like, I
Yeah.
hate zombies. They're so disgusting, and that's why I didn't watch it for the longest time. But
Hmm.
then my mom kept saying, "You don't understand. You're gonna fall in love with the people." And sure enough, I was hooked. I like love
Right.
people. You're weeping when they die. I mean, it's you need to take a break from it.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones was another one where, like, you've
Yeah.
seen it, right? The Red Wedding.
I have never seen Game of Thrones.
Okay. So I'm
As
giving
she
you
sits back in her throne, she's about to
I'm
behead me.
like, excuse me, my dragons are about to come out.
I
Fire
know, because
on you.
I'm such a scaredy cat, and everybody's like, it's so gory, and I'm like, I don't know if I could do it.
May not be your cup of tea.
Hmm.
I think you could get through Outlander because of the love story, but there are some episodes that are just tough. And one of the things I do have to run, but one of the things I
Yeah.
wanted to tell you was I meant to get back to you on the one episode that I like. My favorite episode of all time
Hmm.
was one of your questions. And I really started thinking about that. I was like, how do I choose an episode from all these shows? Because I become so attached to these characters.
Hmm.
This is one of the reasons why I wanted to do your podcast, because, like, I totally understand, like, these
Yeah.
people are part of my life. Like,
Yeah.
all of these characters you just have with you. And I love how you said, who do you think of, at times that are rough? Well, like, I can remember sometimes, like, in a spin class when I'm like, I can't get through this class. And then I will remember, Danielle, you've voiced Wonder Woman. you are Freya, and you are also Elsa. Like you're Elsa's voice double. Like you are three preeminent goddesses of all time.
Yes.
Can get through the spin class.
Yes.
And I'll look at myself in the mirror and I'll be like, yeah. And I'll feel like I'm like with my lasso. And then I'm like Elsa with my, ice coming out of my hands. And then I'm Freya
Yes.
with my bow and arrow and my swords. And all of a sudden I get through the class, but not because I'm thinking of Danielle. I'm thinking of like these characters that I've embodied,
Yes, but just remember you've embodied those characters because there's a part of you that is them. So
It's
it's
true.
like, it's a reflection of who you are. So just because it has a different, image to it, it's still you. And that's why I think doing an exercise like that is so therapeutic.
Definitely. It's so true. And so just to like button up with your question on my favorite episode, I went back to all of my favorite shows and it always comes down to the first kiss of the two characters that you
Mhm.
have been waiting, you have been dying for it. And so I went back and I watched that episode with Ross and Rachel where they show the prom footage and he was
Yes.
about to ask her and he's on the stairs with the flowers and she didn't realize he wanted to. And then like it was directed and acted so perfectly. I feel like I'm gonna cry even just thinking
I
about
cry
it.
every time I watch it.
Like
It's so good.
he just like pauses and like they're like, "You did that?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then she just like
Walks
doesn't
away.
say anything. She walks across the room and like kisses like the best kiss ever. And like you're just bursting into tears. And you can see how like all the other friends are so happy and for that moment. And
Mhm.
I think that's the moment. It's like the first time Jon Snow kisses Khaleesi, or the first time that Pam and Jim kiss on The Office, and like
Mhm.
I just go through all my shows and like when they make you wait for those two characters to
Mhm.
finally come together, like it is so emotional and it's so
Mhm.
wonderful. And there's a
Mhm.
moment like that in Dwight in Shining Armor, so I really want you to see that show because they
Okay.
make you wait for the two characters to finally kiss, and it's like you burst into tears.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I do that and I'll rewind it, like Luke and Lorelai, all of them. I'm like, I need to watch it again. Or Sydney and Vaughn, spoiler alert. I'm just like,
Yeah,
oh, finally.
finally.
Well, Danielle, I know you have to run. I could talk to you for like 5 more hours,
I know.
truthfully.
We'll do another podcast.
Honestly, this was so fun. Thank you so much for doing this. Congratulations on your movie. The Blue Rose is out today. And enjoy it all. Congrats. And I can't wait to hear the song and see the video. I can't wait.
Yeah, I'll make sure Amber sends that to you. And thank you so much for
Okay,
having me
great.
on. And we'll
Bye.
we'll we'll play again another time.
Yes, please. Okay, bye. Thank you.